does, I am going to answer it because there's a load of stuff coming for Scarlett's birthday party at the weekend, and if that doesn't arrive on time, my life will not be worth living. So
16 Max Pro.
no, she's not getting one of those.
Well, mine came.
Very good.
And Black Watch.
My favourite tartan. Right, where's Discord?
Are you on the podcast next week, John?
Oh, don't ask me these terribly
Have I
difficult
finalised
questions.
that?
Let me have a look.
Third.
Yes, I am.
Okay, cool. Maybe that's a good. You choose one of those for your hot hardware.
Oh, well, people just laugh at me.
Well, okay. I'm putting myself on the line once again this week with hot hardware. So here goes.
Okay.
Are we live, Darian?
Yeah, everyone should be able to hear us. Let me just check.
All right. Well, what a
We
fascinating
haven't told
bit of chat
everybody
that
what the
was.
hot hardware is next week. That's skewing it against me even further.
It's okay. Look, the criticisms are coming in for me already. I've got Running Dak giving me a cold. Hasn't even heard what it is yet. But my dad is here, so I'm hoping that he'll kind of support me.
And Lee's mum's here,
Sports
which is nice.
meandering. Sports circuitous.
We should definitely have family support, I think. At least then you
That'd be
get
nice.
one vote. Someone has free merch.
Imagine if Tim gets 2 votes today and it's just him and his dad.
Would it be worse if it was just me, though, wouldn't it, Roche? So, you know,
Yeah.
I'll take what I can, frankly.
Yeah.
No, Paul, there is no fuzzy Barry this week. I think there's no Barry next week either.
Ooh.
Let's see.
Well, I'm a few months away from the 20th anniversary of my mum dying, so I'd quite happily have her come along to vote for my hot hardware. How about that?
Yeah.
Aw.
I'm sure she would have done, John.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced. My
Oh,
dad
can
would
I
have
tell you
listened to it.
something? This is really funny. Okay,
Well,
so
you've built it up now.
no, it is. It's really funny. So my mum has like a skybox or whatever, and then there's the television, and so she needs the 2 remote controls, and it's all just getting a bit much for her. And I said, we don't need to go through all of this. We can get you a telly, and it will be 1 button, 1 finger, right? So anyway, I brought my stuff because I'm working from Ireland because I'm waiting for the delivery of the television and so on. So I go to Ireland, I'm sitting in my mum's house and I'm on a Teams chat with a client, and my mum is over the laptop and she's going like this. And he's like, Jesus, Mum. And then I'm trying to kind of keep a poker face, but my face is a bit leaky. So I just was like, I'm going to just have to go. And I was like, Mum, what's this? And she was like, the telly has arrived. And I was like,
What? And
That's
what?
the symbol for the telly.
Yes.
oh,
What
where is
culture
that?
does-
So this was her button and this was her 1 finger. And I'm like, that is not the signal for 1 button.
I was in a
Oh my
meeting
God.
a couple of days ago, and
Yeah.
in-person meeting in London, and one of the team remoted in from her house because she was doing a work from home thing, and she was sat there like we are here, and then suddenly this black thing appeared like this. It was the tail of her cat, who had jumped onto her lap, and the tail, you couldn't see the cat, you could only see the tail, like an aerial. It was quite spooky, really.
You could infer the presence of the cat. Right, 5 seconds, everyone.
Tense.
1 o'clock.
Hello and welcome to the PC Pro podcast on the 26th of September 2024. I'm Tim Danton, editor-in-chief of PC Pro, and just blowing through that mistake. And with me today, I have here Darian Graham-Smith,
Hello there.
John Honeyball,
Afternoon.
and Roshni Humour. How close was I?
That's so good, Matt. That's really good.
Thank you. For people who don't regularly listen to this podcast, I wonder why that's such an achievement. I've been trying to pronounce Roche's name for about 6 years now. So if I got anywhere close there, then I'm a very happy person. And I do need to give Lee a bit of credit for helping me out. Anyway, let's move on to the first story, and that is with you, Roche.
Yeah, so this is actually good news for impulse shoppers everywhere. New California law has required that if you can buy with one click, then you must be able to subscribe with one click, then you must be able to cancel with one click. It's supposed to make it easier to cancel recurring subscriptions. Oh my goodness, like streaming video services, gym memberships, and online newspapers. So this is a bit of a bugbear for me because being somewhat impulsive, I say somewhat. This is kind of a sidebar, but I once did a psych evaluation at work, and the guy who did the psych evaluation, he was from South Africa, and I said, "Oh, I learned how to use a handgun in South Africa." And he says, he looks at my results, and he says, "You know, judging by your results, you're the last person who should carry a gun." And we both laughed, and because funny because it's true. So I have a long list of subscriptions that I have been.
No, I'm sorry, Roche. I can't let this go. Why are you mentioning this? What relevance does that have to do with your ability or inability to resist one-click subscriptions?
It's impulse buying.
Okay.
One-shot subscriptions, I think she was going from, and getting confused.
So it's the impulse to, you see something, you're like, oh, I should definitely sign up for that, and then it doesn't quite live up to the the level of material or the content that you want. And then no, it was just all, like I say, I'm somewhat impulsive. I'm quite impulsive, and so now I have like this long list of subscriptions. Now, sometimes it has served me. Like I got a subscription to a bacon service one time, and they would post bacon to you. I was really happy with that. Yeah, I know they would post. Anyway, that was all great until I didn't need it anymore. But mercifully, it was really.
When do you stop needing bacon? What changes in your life?
No, it was just that the kind
Who
of.
is this mad woman we've let onto the podcast? Can I ask that at the London meetup thing that she doesn't bring the bacon or the gun? Just asking, I mean.
If we're going to choose between the two, just don't bring the gun, please, Roche.
Yeah. So anyway,
Bring the bacon, leave the cannoli. No, wait.
But mercifully, so this is what I've learned as a sort of subscription addict, is that actually what it tends to be is that the value of the product to you is directly proportional to how easy it will be to get rid of it. And so I've subscribed to such things as Giphy generator. I could not get rid of it until I got my bank involved. I know why. I don't know. It was like $1.99. I needed to generate a Giphy. I thought I'll probably need that again. I never needed it again. And also, by the way, I found free stuff that you could use online. So this is what I'm saying, is that the pain of subscriptions that I do not need is real for me, and it's protracted, and it takes a lot of my time. So this is a gift. This is the point of my story. This new California law is a gift, because even though it will operate in California, California is a big market. Anybody presumably who's got like a website isn't going to create a separate website for California, so then it's going to have a knock-on effect. And we've seen this kind of happening. So the Dutch are pretty good at making sure things are easy for consumers. The Germans also have quite a tough law, but nothing is as good as one-click cancellation. So if you missed the story with the gun bit or the bacon bit, the story is simply that California is now introducing a much easier way to cancel your subscriptions. And on that note, I'll hand over to the professionals.
Okay. Well, first of all, John, have you ever subscribed to a meat supply service?
No. But I must confess that I'm 100% on board with what Roche has to say about this. I think there are companies out there, and we can all point fingers at our favourite culprits. And I'm not going to name names, because when you've actually got out of these services, finally, by battling with the online, going to tech support and then phoning them and then sending them a fax with a dead rat. I mean, it's, some of these companies have been hysterically bad. The problem, of course, is that you don't use the service anymore, so you don't know 3 years later whether they're still as bad as they were. So anyway, we have all seen these issues, and I think this is a damn good piece of legislation. And can we please have it here? Because I am very tired of some of this stuff. I mean, there's all sorts of things like you can only cancel in month 11 of your subscription, and if you miss that bit, you're tied in for another year, and all of this kind of.
Well, you've been
Frankly,
tricked by
it's entrapment. There's nothing more or less than that.
Well, especially in the commercial space, John, because I know you're not going to name names, but I do know that you've been hurt a couple of times, haven't you, with commercial level subscriptions?
Yeah, and yeah, we're not going to name names on that front, and it was sufficiently expensive that you thought, was it worth actually getting a lawyer involved? And this is just basically shady practice from companies that when you've discovered they do this, you absolutely don't want to have any business with them, even though you had a valid reason for walking away from it. So yeah, count me in, please. I think this is really important.
Yeah, go on, Rush.
So John has lived my life. John, see your sister. No, it is
Which
because
one?
this is what happens, right? So you go through this protracted thing online, and then they have like a telephone support. And I genuinely have had. So this is what I've been met with. You know, I'm tired, I'm bored, I'm frustrated with their rubbish process, and then it sounds like I am all of those things when I speak to someone on the phone, and then there's the kind of oh well, you don't need to be like that, and you're like, well, you know, this is your process that you're creating, and you're not running a charm school. In fact, you're not even delivering the service or product that you said that you would. And it is just there was never a good reason not to have that button in the first place. So the fact that they're coming late to the party is great, but better late than never.
Well, of course, there was a good reason from their point of view. The reason being it locks you in, and so being the utopian that I am, I dare to hope that maybe because obviously subscriptions are very, very lucrative for companies, and so this is why everything is now moving to a subscription. You can't buy a bleeding word processor anymore. Well, you sort of can, but they don't want you to. They want you to take out a month by month, year by year, regular commitment. If this makes subscriptions a little bit less of a money spinner, dare I hope it will slow down at the very least the move to everything having to be a monthly payment. That would be an enormous win.
Let's not forget, you know, there are a lot of services out there who do make it difficult. Antivirus packages are fairly notorious for this, where you sign up and you can't say do not make this auto renewing. And they basically hope that you don't notice, and in 12 months' time they hit you for the renewal cost, and they hope that you think, oh damn it, it's too late, I'm locked in for another year, and it rolls. Now, in my experience of dealing with that kind of lock-in, if you get onto their support and say, damn you, I want my money back, they will usually fold because and give you the refund. But it can take weeks because of course they're very, very fast to take money but awfully slow to give it back. So I think not only should one-click unsubscribe be available everywhere, I'm also, if I was going to be, come the revolution, I would certainly have, there's no such thing as a recurring subscription unless you actively tie yourself into it.
No, I don't think that's right, John, because I think actually recurring subscriptions do help you. I think it's removing friction, and I think people need to realise this works both ways. If you make it very easy to unsubscribe, then it makes it more tempting to subscribe.
No, what I meant here, Tim, was not that we shouldn't have recurring subscriptions. What I'm saying is that when you take out your annual for whatever, it should be front and center on you. Would you like to make this recurring? Yes. And then
Yes.
how you've been informed, you've been asked, and you've made an informed decision.
I think that's the time shortly after Roche has been delivered a flying pig each month. So it's just not enough in their interest, is it? Unless it comes in by law, I just don't see.
So,
Maybe,
Tim, you
maybe.
were saying that if it's easy to if it's easy to unsubscribe, that makes it more tempting to subscribe. But there is a real problem here. I do sort of have a certain amount of sympathy with antivirus, security vendors in particular, because their reputation lags behind the reality by decades. I mean, ask anybody in the street, what do you think of Norton antivirus, and they'll tell you anecdotes from 2002. So I think that sort of thing takes so long to percolate, and it's a real challenge for, as someone who
I don't
reviews.
understand the point you're making, Darian. What are you saying?
I'm
Because
saying that if they change that unsubscription system to be super, super easy, it wouldn't change public perception ever, or if it did, it would take absolutely years and years and years to undo the received wisdom, just the general sense that that subscriptions are a pain, are a millstone around your neck, and we can't very easily report on this stuff because I can install, I've done a lot of security reviews in my time. I can install Kaspersky, McAfee, whatever, and try it out, even a long-term review for 3 months, but I can't realistically wait a year to find out how they're going to behave at the point the license expires.
No, but I think but you bring up an excellent topic area in terms of this, Darian, because the antivirus brigade, let's call them that, and their renewal
All right.
practices are, I would say, some of the dodgiest in the software market in terms of this kind of lure of the first year subscription, cut price subscription, £20 for a year, it says, for a family. And then it's not hidden exactly, it's there if you want to find it, but it's much smaller lettering, let's point out. It says, actually, well, next year though, it'll be 80 quid unless you remember to unsubscribe. So it's not good behaviour. So if you are talking about companies such as the one you mentioned, can I go away with that legally if I don't explicitly say it?
Yeah.
Anyway, then I don't think they're doing themselves any favours.
Well, no, that is a slightly different point, though. I actually want to say that McAfee, I think in particular, have been very transparent. I've recently come to the end of a license, and they bombarded me with emails saying it's about to run out. Do you want to recur or renew? If not, here's how you cancel. There's no, I could not accuse them, whatever I might accuse McAfee of, and it's been very, very up and down in my estimation over the past decade or so as it's been passed from owner to owner. But I think at the moment they're actually handling that quite well. But yeah, the business about the price is £40 for the first year and then 120 for the next year. That is a separate but very real issue. But in sort of fairness to the security,
it's the same thing. It's trying to lure you. It's exactly the same model. It is the business model.
It's not.
I don't
There's a
think it is
difference between
thing.
dark patterns that make it discouragingly difficult to unsubscribe or don't warn you at the right time, and giving you transparency about the subscription or making the unsubscription easy, but tricking you by changing the rates. They are slightly different approaches. And I just want to say the security brigade, as you have christened them, are far from the only ones doing this. If you've tried to renew your broadband lately or your mobile phone contract or buy a VPN product, it is everywhere. So admittedly, it sucks regardless of the industry.
And every 2 years I bounce between AA and RAC because you get a cheap first year, and then second year they want to, I think it was near double the price last time for year 2, and then you phone them up and say, I want to cancel please, and they say, oh no, we could drop the price, and so you get the price drop for second year, and then year 3 you go over to the other one, and then sort of ping pong every couple of years.
So as we've also introduced we've gone from the easy to unsubscribe to the sort of the hidden costs of year 2. Can I just introduce the domain registers? No, because I purchased a domain that I think is going to be really hot in 2025. So, and then I bought it in 23 because I'm looking onto the horizon. I'm like, I think this is going to be big in 25, and it cost me €2 because it's a .ie, right? And it cost me €2 in year 1, and I thought, let me just see how that's going to trend forward, and then it's cost me €40 for year 2.
God. So it's going to be what, 1,600 next year?
Yeah, it's like that rice thing.
Yeah, it's my hidden weakness is is undoubtedly the problems of so I've got completely distracted by a message from Barry. Yeah, what is my problem? My problem, I'm gonna have to go. What are you talking about? Oh yes, no, it's websites. I went through a phase of looking at websites and thinking exactly, I think, like you, Roche. Oh, this will be big, or I will definitely create that website next year. And I have got rid of most of them now, but at one point it was costing me easily £100 a year, which may not be sound like much, but when you're on the salary that I am, that is significant. Anyway, let's move on to the next story. Right, and this one is with you, Mr. John Honeyball.
Well, it's kind of like a group effort here because there's lots to cover off. So we'll do them.
Okay, I'll do a translation. I'll do a translation for everyone listening. John has not done enough research, so he is relying upon us to fill in. Carry on, John.
Oh, you're so unhelpful. Okay, so Meta has had its big shindig thing, Meta Connect 2024. And of course, they've, as you would expect from a big company like Meta, they've announced a whole bunch of stuff, some of which is interesting, some of which is fun, and some of which is just like a bit crazy, really. As you would expect from Meta and the Meta group, there's a whole bunch of AI-related stuff. And it really is, as you would expect from them, AI with everything now. Let's start off with a slightly more interesting take, which I think will definitely get the juices flowing, which is that apparently Mark Zuckerberg has said that there is, quote, no causal connection between social media and teen mental health. Now, that's quite a big statement to make, and I'm sure we can absolutely point to relatives and friends who have got teenagers on Meta's various platforms, and they're all just great kids. Let's be quite clear about that. But I must confess, I find a sort of a blanket statement of there being no causal connection between social media and teen mental health to be, well, let's frankly call it what it is, exactly what you would expect him to say. If for those of us with very long memories will remember the case of Mandy Rice Davis, who said in court, well, he would say that, wouldn't he? Because the last thing Zuckerberg would want to do would be to kind of admit that there was any kind of causal connection. And I think he's on very thin ice there.
That'd be a rather bigger headline, wouldn't it?
He did say, though, a couple of weeks ago, I recall there was an interview where he said that one of the mistakes he'd made was accepting other people's or other organisations' characterizations of things. And the headline was, I forget who reported it, so Zuckerberg says no more apologies. And I'm not saying I agree with him, but in a way I have a certain... respect is too strong a word, but at least he's being forthright about what his position is. He's not being mealy-mouthed and trying to have it both ways. He's not saying one thing and doing another. He has at least, made a stand, so we can work out whether he's right or wrong.
Okay, John. And what was there are plenty more things to cover from Meta Connect. So what else would you like?
So what else
to
have we got here?
to?
Well, there's obviously a whole bunch of AI-related stuff. Metaverse avatars are going to be a lot better. They're going to be a lot more fun and funky. You're going to be using them on their VR operating system as well as on Facebook and Instagram and Messenger. So I think that just sounds quite horrifying to me, but there you go. They're also going to start...
Sorry, John, I will just interrupt. I made you hurry up just a second ago. Has anyone tried Horizon Worlds? And I think this does currently involve having a MetaQuest headset, I believe. Darian?
I don't have a headset. I had a Samsung VR about 8 years ago, and that was enough to put me off VR for at least a generation.
No, I only say that because I just don't know anybody who has ever tried it. I mean, it does exist. I'm sure people do.
I did try one. Oh, no, I was going to say I did try one at a party once, and it was fine for 10 minutes at a party.
No, I'm talking about Horizon Worlds and these other things where you might actually use the use the avatars. Sorry. Okay, sorry, John. I interrupted you. Carry on.
So there's all this kind of usual kind of AI created nonsense stuff. They are going to start creating AI created imagery that they're going to shove into your Facebook feed as which you can then pick up and work with if you want to. Again, I think that sounds like an instant block to me, or some add-in tool to kill that off. Thank you very much. But it is somewhat sort of desperate when you've got to the point where they're going to be generating large quantities of of AI generated stuff and putting it into your feed. Think of all the CPU cycles that's going to get consumed doing this. It's not exactly lean and mean web, is it? He claims that creators and publishers, quote, overestimate the value of their work when it comes to training AI engines. Well, I mean, what a surprise. Because again, the absolute last thing that any of these large-scale AI training companies want to have to do is to account for where they got their stuff from.
That's so arrogant. That's just outrageous, isn't it?
I don't know. Overestimate is not the same as they are worthless to us.
No, but you can definitely rephrase that in a politer manner when you are effectively on the hook, potentially, for stealing other people's content. So
That would be the time you do not want to rephrase it in a more conciliatory manner.
Well, the
Right,
reality, of course, is that the horse has bolted on this. They've taken, historically, as we've talked about before, the likes of Google have scraped the content of the internet and used it for their search engine stuff. So it was the obvious next logical step to take that very self-same scraping and use it to train AI engines. So it's kind of a bit late. And where were the regulators? They are saying, he did say that they're working on recreating influencers with AI. So basically, it will be able to create online bot content based upon influencers who can then basically just sort of, I don't know what, just toggle off to the beach for the day or whatever, and have their avatar sat there answering questions and doing stuff on their behalf. If that's going to work, I really don't think so. There's
Roche, so I think Roche has a point she wants to
I think I just sit back and put my seatbelt on now, I think, actually.
Do you know what? These big bold statements out of Zuckerberg, I'm not liking anything since John started talking, to be honest with you. So number one, and I'm going to take you right back to the top where John refreshed all of our memories by saying that Zuckerberg had said that there was no link between children harming and social media. That's really disingenuous, and it isn't like that is a negligent misstatement. He well knows that isn't true, that they have gamed their social media platform to be attractive in the same way that Vegas games their one-armed bandits and bells and whistles and lights and everything like that to be attractive, to hit all of the dopamine and all of the good stuff, the oxytocin, that they know exactly what they're doing. And, I mean, besides the fact that like the whole kind of the birth of the Facebook didn't exactly come from Zuckerberg, but his mother is a psychologist, and you can only imagine that in the very early days that they understood what they were getting themselves into. And the whole thing has been constructed to keep people on. So that's one. I take serious issue with that, and big, bold, blanket statements like that are indefensible, right? Because you simply can't make that kind of a statement and then hope to be able to support it. There's enough evidence at this point. Now, if he wanted to discredit certain bits of literature, then he should go ahead and say that. But to be honest with you, the guy doesn't have the wherewithal to be able to deconstruct those arguments in a meaningful way. So what does he do? He just, does the sort of the Trump thing. It's fake news. Like, I know we're not allowed to swear, but it's really hard right now. So that's
Someone tell Barry you're not allowed to swear. You're taking away 10% of his vocabulary if he's not allowed to swear.
And sorry, but then the other thing is like that he's like a Batman villain, but he doesn't have a cool name. Like this new thing with this sort of like the AI and the artists and stuff. Do you know what? Everyone, if people aren't important to him and they're feeling, get off Facebook. Everyone just leave Facebook now in droves. Just go and let him and all of his little avatars have their own little world, and then they can talk to each other, and wouldn't that be great? And God, I don't like this guy so much.
Okay, moving
I'm
swiftly
getting
on,
that
because I
feeling.
have more things to cover here. Oh,
Yeah, carry on.
shall I? Okay, thank you, Tim. Thank you, Rose. That was quite delightful. There's two bits of hardware things to talk about here. You remember Meta does these Ray-Ban glasses We looked. I bought the. I've got them somewhere around here. I bought the first version some years ago, and they were rubbish. But they have been kind of improving. And this is basically Ray-Ban glasses with a camera and little loudspeakers and so forth. They've done two things here. One of which is they've done a translucent version of these glasses, so you can see the circuitry in them. Ooh. No, I'm still not buying them. But they have added some more functionality in, something called reminders. So the glasses will basically take a photograph of something you're looking at and then remind you about it later. You can also do things like scanning QR codes and looking up phone numbers and so forth just by looking through the glasses and I guess pressing the button that was on the side. So that's kind of a bit of functionality, but they're still, pretty mediocre as far as I'm concerned. What is much more interesting is something they showed called Project Orion. Now these kind of look like Ray-Bans in a kind of a very thick-framed version.
They look, John, they look nothing like Ray-Bans. They look like Joe 90.
Well, yes, okay, Joe 90 for those of us of a certain age and certain love of the Jerry Anderson. So basically, these are their first stab at proper AR glasses, and they're so fabulous they're not going to make them. Because they wanted to put a price tag apparently of $10,000 on it, and then I guess some people finally internally laughed and said, "You got to be joking." So what are these things? They are AR in that you can look through the lenses into the room. So the ARness is in the lens in front of you. It's not actually in the lens, because although that will ultimately be the best way of doing it with translucent OLED, we're way away from doing that. I mean, Tim and I will remember looking at translucent Samsung television panels, and LG does it as well. So these are like windows you can look through, but they're also OLED panels. To get like a 4K panel down into the 1 or 1.5 inches across, and still have it translucent is some generations of engineering away. But it will come, without question. That is the long-term goal. So what they did was they did a little projector within the arms of the glasses to shine onto.
Very similar, actually, to Google Glass.
Yeah, to
much
shine.
high resolution.
Yeah, but I must confess, I've been looking at some of the videos that they've been putting out, because of course all the usual suspects of fluencers have been given demos of this, and I must confess most of the demos seem to say on it demonstration recreated using a camera in the room and stuff. Well, this is a bit twaddlish, really, isn't it? And what I've seen has looked remarkably low resolution. And so, I mean, it's a technical demonstration of kind of where they're going, but and undoubtedly being able to look through a lens in the future will be the future of this kind of stuff. But they're
I thought the
years
wristband
from.
was quite interesting, though, John.
They're also doing a haptic wristband to try and work out what you're doing with your fingers and so forth, and that's kind of interesting. Of course, what Apple does on Vision Pro, as I'm waving mine here, is they have all of the LiDAR and depth cameras and so forth. This is 5-10 years away technology, both for Apple and for Meta, but we know that. That's not a problem. So it's good to see that they're working in this space too, but it's also interesting that they decided not to bring it to market.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and I'm aware of time. Otherwise, I would kind of want to talk about this a bit more. But as you say, John, it was an interesting idea of where technology can go, because the argument is that this will ultimately replace our phones. So rather than having these, there probably will come a time, when people look at the pockets of everyone in films in the early 2000s, 2010s, etc., and say, my goodness, they used to walk around with such thick things in their pockets because we had wallets and we had phones and all this kind of thing. In the future, I suspect, not maybe a future I'll get to see, but everything will be much sleeker, and such things won't exist. And this is the kind of thing that they're pointing to with this new product. And I can kind of see it, but as you say, John, at the moment it looks low res, it looks a bit shambolic. The risk thing is interesting, but surely, as you say, John, LiDAR will actually be taken on, because how difficult can it really be to actually put that into the bottom of the glasses to observe what your hands are doing as miniaturization happens, because we know it always does happen. So yes, that is likely to be the future. So, but it was interesting as a tech demo. Did you manage to see any of it, Darian or Roche?
No, so it's actually quite interesting how much it passed me by. I had to go digging a bit this morning to find out some information about it. I think no matter how much, I mean, Facebook is a vast company with an enormous influence, but it doesn't seem to have that that je ne sais quoi, that spark of excitement that maybe it once did, and that Apple and some other companies still do.
Yes, and John, I don't know if you were going to talk about the new Meta Quest, or were you not?
I wasn't particularly, because I'm not into gaming low-res VR headsets. I'm not a gamer from that point of view. I'd rather use a desktop PC or a big telly for that, I must confess. And for real VR and AR, I've got Vision Pro.
Yeah, no, I completely understand what you're saying, but I think actually it potentially could get a few sales certainly over the Christmas period, the Quest 3S. For £289, it does look quite interesting. Certainly, I'm not willing to pay up, close to 500 or even let's say £3,000 for a VR/AR headset. So this one actually does look better than any other sub £300 headset that I've seen before, and I've tested quite a few in the past. So that did look quite interesting to me.
You can call them toys, and I don't mean that in a bad way. They are aimed at a very specific set of capabilities around specific types of gaming, and at a price point that makes it affordable into that kind of toy gift bracket, and that's absolutely fine.
Darian, tell us what's been going on in the rail networks.
Yeah, it's been a bit strange actually. So if you've taken a train journey recently, a little bit like Tim was saying.
Oh no, sorry, I've got it. It's much better. Darian, tell us why Wi-Fi has gone off the rails.
Oh, that's
That's
well
good.
worth interrupting and restarting the thing. So yeah, if you've taken a train journey recently, you may have done, as Tim was describing, dug out your phone and spent the duration of the journey staring at content. You may even have broken out a laptop and done a bit of work. If you have, you'll doubtless availed yourself of the Wi-Fi, which is now available on many train lines and at many stations. Well, someone's hacked that. Not necessarily in the way you might expect. They haven't broken in and installed ransomware, as far as we know. They haven't carried out a massive exfiltration of personal data, as far as we know. But what we do know is that the landing page for the Wi-Fi has been replaced by one which is really quite dodgy. I had to do a bit of digging, actually, because this has been reported by several news agencies, but they've all been very coy about what exactly appears. And I finally found it. Of course, I found it on Twitter. Where else are you going to find the scurrilous, uncensored, unfiltered filth of the world? So basically, rather than it saying "Welcome to Great Northern" or whatever, please click here to continue, it said "We love you, Europe," and then there was a screed. Islamophobic is the word which has been used a lot. It refers to lots of terrorist events which have been linked with Islamist groups, and basically it doesn't. There's no call to action. It's just spreading phobia and division and so forth. But it was surprisingly widespread. I said it was on the trains. Actually, this has been reported specifically at the stations. I should be clear, and it may well be because the Wi-Fi at stations is provided by a third party called Telent. It was a rather horrible name, but they managed to get it everywhere. So 10 major stations in London, which is basically all of them: King's Cross, London Bridge, Euston, Victoria, Cannon Street, Charing Cross, Liverpool Street, Clapham Junction, Waterloo and Paddington, plus Manchester, Piccadilly, Liverpool, Lime Street, Birmingham, New Street, Glasgow Central, Leeds City, Bristol, Temple Mead, Edinburgh, Waverley, Reading and Guildford were all affected. Now, I don't know what actually happened.
Stations?
Oh, loads of them all over the place. Wait, is Wales not represented? That's a bit off, isn't it? Anyway, I don't know whether you were actually able to continue through to use the Wi-Fi after seeing this message. You might well have thought, well, I'd rather not anyway. It's been taken offline while an investigation is underway, but it's a little bit Well, it's extremely concerning that something that so many, you've got to imagine tens of thousands of commuters. Did I mention, by the way, this started yesterday and the Wi-Fi is currently offline pending an investigation, could be attacked in such a way, so broadly and so effectively by people who obviously knew a fair bit about what they were doing, but also were obviously espousing some rather concerning viewpoints.
Yes, John.
Well, a couple of things to say here. One, VPN, please. You know, so if you're out in public space on some sort of public connectivity that is not your mobile phone, so i.e. not a 4G, 5G connection, if you're connecting to some public-facing Wi-Fi, then you shove in your VPN very quickly. Thank you very much. And secondly, this has come up a few times, hasn't it? About for example, scanning QR codes in order to get to login pages. Wasn't there some scam? Maybe it was only a few charges, but wasn't there some scam about people putting fake QR codes over the QR codes on some of the public EV chargers out there to redirect you to the wrong place and so forth? I don't know if that's still a thing or not, because obviously you don't want to be having to install apps everywhere, because that gets very boring, and the idea of scanning a QR code sounds great until you end up in the wrong place. Yeah, I mean, I never use public Wi-Fi like that. I'll always hotspot to my phone. If it's not my phone, if I'm using a device like a laptop or whatever, which needs connectivity, I will hotspot to my phone. And I find that to be probably more reliable than VPN tunneling over the Wi-Fi service on the train. I was on a train this week. It was very scary.
For the other passengers or for you?
Just in general.
So I remember there was a movement to getting laptops with 4G, I think it was at that time, built in with LTE, and it just didn't happen. At one point, I was contemplating that we should have a cover line on the magazine saying, basically 4G laptops, connected laptops, etc. Because I thought it was, in one of my many predictions of the future, I thought this was going to be the next big thing. And of course, it's completely fizzled out. You get a few corporate laptops with 4G built in, and of course, you still get tablets with mobile broadband options. But what we should have, I would argue, is we need to have a single SIM assigned to us, an eSIM assigned to us, which will work on our laptop, which will work on our tablet, which will work on our phone, which will work on our silly glasses that we're wearing, rather than this old-fashioned, stupid assignation to a one phone that we happen to use some of the time. And it's a right pain. Darian, go on.
Yeah, I was going to say exactly the same thing you just said about needing to have a single SIM. But maybe there is a way forward with the increasing rise of wearables. Maybe like your watch or something could house your SIM, and all the many devices that you use around you will all tether to that. There is kind of I can see a way forward. And also it's just really expensive, it seems to be, still, to build a modem into a laptop. It really messes up the price.
Well, yes, but that's if you're looking at Apple laptops, Darian. It's far less so if you are just looking at third-party M.2 chip cards that you can put in. But John, you had something to say?
I was going to say, coming to a column near you soon in the inestimably wonderful PC Pro magazine, I talk about eSIMs. And I would say, the sooner a company like, in this particular case, Apple, or choose your vendor of choice, comes up with a grown-up eSIM solution that, with them working as a mobile virtual network operator on a global basis. So I think I gave the example of, if I land in Los Angeles, why doesn't my phone automatically pick up an eSIM from Apple, and it just works for the number of days that I'm there for, and it's easy. And I don't know why this is so damn difficult in the UK.
Indeed. Okay, I'm going to put an end to that particular discussion there, and move on to Roche, who wants to talk about MrBeast. Well, Roche always wants to talk about MrBeast, but we're letting her this week.
I'm kind of new to MrBeast, but I just realised that this entire show has been just like potted with like crazy billionaires, and so it's sort of bookended, right?
That's the tech industry.
Well, we've got John on the line, so of course it's billionaires.
Yeah. So, Mr. Beast, if you don't know, he is YouTube. He's got 300 million subscribers, and he is YouTube's first billionaire. And he's known for his stunt philanthropy. I don't actually know what that is because I didn't take the time to watch any of his stuff. But yeah, it's kind of like these big production things. Now, it's not the first time he's been in the news. A character who was like acting as his wingman ended up in a bit of trouble, quite rightly, when it was discovered that he had been sharing inappropriate images. So, fill in the blanks with minors. A couple of years back. Anyway, he was Mr. Beast, who's in the real world known as Jimmy Donaldson, but doesn't have the same appeal. It doesn't. Booted him out and is now facing a class action. And the class action is just, I mean, there's 4 things that you want to look for in a company. 1 is leadership, 2 is governance, 3 is culture, and 4 is accounting. They're the kind of like, they're the big things. I hope I haven't repeated myself. So they fail on every single count. This class action, which is made up of 5 people but operating on behalf of a wider class, and we actually don't know how many is in it, because Mr. Beast and Amazon were going to do a TV show. And the premise was that they would have 1,000 contestants all competing for a £5 million jackpot at the end of the show. There are a few things that we do know. Number 1, there was not 1,000. There was more than 1,000. And so then what that did was it reduced the odds, and that was a material representation, these guys in the defendant claim. But anyway, there's 13 complaints. They weren't fed, they weren't paid, they were harassed. There was a toxic culture. One person didn't get their medication. I mean, it just I can't wait for Netflix to make the Squid Games movie about this thing. So anyway, yeah, it's 54 pages. If you're into corporate scandals, this is a delight, and it's one to watch. There's a whole lot going on here.
It seems like you kind of buried that there, that they weren't paid part seems quite important. I feel like that should give them quite a strong case, surely.
So in fact, actually, it's even worse than that, because
they would charge money.
What Mr. Beast and his goons did was that they got money from the state of Nevada. Oh, this is a kind of an ode to your rattling off the train stations. All of these 1,000 people, they were made up of people from Alabama, Alaska, Arizona, Arkansas, California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Florida, Georgia, Hawaii, Idaho. I'm not going to go on, but
no, please do.
Oh, really?
No, it's okay.
Okay. I mean, I can, but we won't do that.
Is this your party trick, basically, Roche?
No. My party trick is a joke about a guy called. Anyway, it's a joke. No, I won't do it now. Tom Tetley, he's a driver, and the police officer pulls him over, and he says, "What's your name?" He says, "Tom Tetley." And he says, "Where are you going to?" He says, "Twickenham." He goes, "All right then, Tom Tetley from Twickenham. Where are you going to?" He says, "Tyneside." He goes, "All right then, Tom Tetley from Twickenham to Tyneside. I'll do it at the party on the 10th of October."
You can work on it between now and then.
No,
I glanced away for 3 seconds, and I came back, and I've no idea what podcast I'm in.
And just the meetup that we're talking about there is on the 10th of October in central London. So join our Discord server if you want more details. But anyway, carry on.
But you have to tell Uncle Tim that you're coming, otherwise it will be chaos.
Yeah. So yeah. So it was more than that they didn't pay. They actually got from the state of Nevada a huge sum that contributed to the paying of these 1,000+ people. But there was and then they completely misclassified stuff, making false statements, but right across the board, everything that they had promised these 1,000 people, they failed to deliver on. And that's Mr. Beast.
So, Roche, and the counter argument is that they did, as James London has pointed out on Discord, that they did know what they were getting into, and what they were battling for was this big $5 million prize.
That's not what the complaint says, though. So the complaint lays out 13 issues, which are material misrepresentations, fostering a culture of misogyny leading to harassment and sexism, stuff like that. So any employer would have a duty of care to its employees, but then what they did was that they induced them, and then in a kind of a bait and switch according to the complaint, then reclassified them as not employees, but simultaneously took money from the state of Nevada saying they were employees. I mean, these guys are in real trouble.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because were they promised then, these participants, that they would be paid?
Yes. Yeah. According to the filings. Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay.
And they were given nothing. And also, and they were given nothing. They weren't even given minimum wage, despite having been told. Yeah.
No, I read through some of the reports, particularly on the New York Times, and it did look horrendous, actually, as an experience. The argument would be from other people is that, again, you know what you're signing up for. Part of this is living through a challenge, just as it is that ITV show where they shove people into jungles. So, you expect hardship.
Yeah, but they get paid, right? All of them.
They do get paid. They do.
Yeah. So they all get paid. And interestingly enough, it's not even something that MrBeast can deny, because he said it on his YouTube channel that even if you're on it for only 5 minutes, you will get paid.
Okay.
And that will be considered a material misstatement or an inducement to. So yeah, there you go. So here's the thing: in a contract, beyond the four corners of the contract, anything that people say. So for contracts to be binding in England and Wales and also in the United States, statements that are made outside of that contract can be pulled in as part of a material and inducement. And then you've relied on that statement, which is what it looks like from the reading of the the document.
So James he's quite vocal on this topic, and he does say don't be in a MrBeast video if you don't want to be in a MrBeast video. But this wasn't a MrBeast video, was it? This was very much an Amazon show, because MrBeast was saying, this is me crossing over to mainstream TV to show my fellow influencers that you can. And with that does come some sort of level of corporate responsibility, I guess.
Yeah. So it is. It's Beast Games. But even if he was doing it on YouTube, and he told people that they would be paid even if they appeared for 5 minutes, and then he refused to pay them even the minimum wage, if MrBeast wants to go into business, he needs to put his big boy pants on, and he needs to play by the rules of the game that every other company and corporation is required to comply with.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. That's a great legal point of view as well. I think
Put your big
gives
boy
us
pants
some
on.
extra clarity. Sorry?
Is it the expression, put your big boy pants on? Yeah, I don't want to bug you down.
Yeah, that's the
technical
one.
terms.
To be honest with you, Roche, you still need to. I think in your very first podcast, you said something about lasagna. A lasagna of that's the the kind of.
That's the high point.
That's the high point. That's what I love to hear. I like food related metaphors. So anyway, shall we carry on? Yes, we shall with nibs. And I'm actually doing the first one because. Yeah, so we talked about Meta not having a great big presence in the industry, so people don't really listen to its events. HP were any of you aware that HP had its Imagine 2024 conference this week?
No.
Anybody listening to us on Discord? I think it's very, very difficult. Oh, okay. There was some recognition on Discord. So thank you, Jeff Campbell and Running Dak, who are both aware of it. And anyway, they announced a bunch of things here, including new laptops and also some print innovations, including HP Print AI. Which is quite easy to be cynical about, looking at John. But one of the things this promises is it will actually make printing easier, and it will do that in a couple of ways. One of which is that it will try and enhance, get rid of obvious errors in the printout. So for one, don't know exactly how it's going to do that. That's a different question. I'm not quite sure. But also to ease the setup and to solve the problems, so that you should be able to, have a rant at your HP printer in the same way that you did your, the Darian, when you were working in IT, and no doubt people were shouting at you about their printer not working. You can have the same experience, but with a phone. So that is coming anyway. It's currently it's in very much beta, invite only, but it will be coming, I think, early next year. But we don't really have any more details than that. Just expect a brighter printing future, guys.
Do you think that would be tied into their subscription ink and subscription toner stuff?
So they've not talked about money. They've not talked about that at all. And I was looking for details about that to see whether or not it was tied in. No, it doesn't appear to be. They're not talking about any... there's no talk about cost at this point at all. All it says is that it's available today through an exclusive beta. That's got the delivering the perfect output feature that I kind of referred to. But HP intends to continue launching HP Print AI capabilities throughout 2025, hopefully not paid for. Second nib is with you, John.
Oh, yes, it is. Mr. Musk and his Xness. You remember a few weeks ago we talked about the major throwing of toys out of the pram between Brazil and Twitter over... we're not going to go back through it again, but basically Twitter pulled out of Brazil and had a big strop, and then Brazil said that you shouldn't be able to access Twitter, or X as they like to call it, from within Brazil, and that there would actually be a fine if you dared to use the VPN tunnel to get outside of Brazil to get onto Twitter, and so forth. It all got extraordinarily heated. Well, according to the New York Times, they have come to, well, shall we say an agreement or a back down or whatever you want to call it, that apparently X has complied with what the court demanded, which is blocking the accounts that were requested to be blocked, paying fines, and naming a new legally supported representative for Twitter within Brazil, because that was something else that they shut down, because it would appear that that person in this previous argument, or the beginning of this argument, would be legally liable. So there's been a big sorting out there. Maybe the grown-ups got involved. Hard to tell. I have one other little micro nib here, which is Mr. Musk announced, and it's gone out now, that if you block somebody on Twitter, moving forward, they will still be able to read your posts, but not be able to, they say, quote, interact with. It's not quite clear what that means. Maybe they won't be able to
you're going to have those
or
big
so
arguments. Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Sorry, John, I'm just looking at the time. Darian, nib.
Yeah, so we all know that AI consumes a lot of energy, and there's been some controversy over where all that energy is coming from. Well, Microsoft has a solution. It's paid Constellation Energy, a power plant operator, to refire up the previously dormant 3 Mile Island Unit 1 nuclear power plant. Constellation says it's going to spend $1.6 billion turning this plant back on after it was decommissioned a couple of years ago. Microsoft has agreed to purchase 100% of the power generated by this entire nuclear power plant for the next 20 years. So they're obviously anticipating that Copilot is going to survive.
Yes, it does emphasise the sheer amount of energy that generative AI does take in the data centre. However, there is an argument that AI is going to move to your laptop because the new wave of laptops are coming out with AI built into their chips, into NPUs in particular, and you cover that, Darian, extremely well, obviously, in the issue of PC Pro that will be landing with subscribers now and goes on sale next week.
You're too kind.
I am too kind. People say that. So this leads into the hot hardware of the week. which I'm very much hoping I can actually finally persuade people to support me on, because honestly, this is good. There's no reason to float negatively on this one at all. And the this is the basically Intel has finally released the Intel Lunar Lake chipset. It's called the Ultra 200V series, or sometimes it calls it the Core Ultra Series 2, just to confuse things. But anyway, you can now buy laptops with Lunar Lake inside. You could do it from 2 days ago. And I'm here to tell you that is very good. Now, I'm going to completely ignore the AI aspect of it for now, because that's very much at some point in the future, AI will be good. Right now, it's kind of okay what you get as a local experience. So, for example, you can get some extra effects on your Copilot Plus PC in terms of the webcam. So I'm looking at myself now. I could definitely be improved if I looked more like a painting. I'm sure we could all agree. So you can add those effects, and it will be shoved onto the NPU rather than you having to use, for example, the GPU, or use the software. So actually use the CPU to actually go into the software. So you can imagine that has a big impact on battery life, because all these things that are previously being shoveled onto the GPU and CPU, both of which are quite energy intensive parts of the processor, is being pushed onto the NPU. So yeah, good, but as I say, really, that's about jam tomorrow. Now, the real benefits, I would argue, of Lunar Lake, Core 200V series, etc., is the battery life, because this is the biggest jump I've seen in battery life on Intel laptops ever. It's as simple as that. It's actually to the point now where if you buy one of these new laptops, you will, not if you're gaming necessarily, but you will get all-day battery life from this, away from the mains, without having to make sacrifices like pushing your energy savings down. So I've in my tests, it's actually rivaling Qualcomm for this. So yeah. That's the biggest change that you'll see, and to me that's actually far more important than the fact it's got faster speed, which it does have in the single core things, but it does not have for the multi-core things. What kind of thing? But in reality, this is aimed very much at thinner light laptops. Let me show you one. Oh, I'm reaching over. Should have prepared this earlier.
Doesn't sound very light.
That's just me stretching. I'm getting older. If you're watching us on YouTube, or you'll be able to see that this is the Asus ZenBook S14 OLED, I believe is its full name. Very slim, 1.2 kilos laptop. Now, am I going to be using that laptop with a 14-inch screen to do heavy-duty video editing? I am not. Am I going to be using it to render things on? I am not. And even it can cope with those things, don't misunderstand me, but it just won't do it as fast as, let's say, a Ryzen 9 HX 370 would. Because that's a more powerful chip that you would expect to see in a thicker laptop, even though it does come in smaller laptops. So what the Intel chip does is it fills this very nice category where it goes into the thin and light laptops, gives you all-day battery life, and it generally does, whilst at the same time giving you extremely snappy performance. Although it's slower in benchmarks than the previous one, for the multi-core one, it's faster than those single-core things, and so it can it's incredibly snappy in use. So my point is, yes, it won't be as fast as that one in actual benchmarks, but in real world use, it's so much faster than most people need, that this is actually just a really, really good mainstream chip. It also has very good mid-weight gaming. So if you want to play, games such as Borderlands 3, you can play Borderlands 3 at 1080p medium settings at a very fluid rate, and pretty much name your game, and at 1080p medium it will play that. So it does have, and I mean at 40-50 frames per second, and especially with games that support frame generation, not going to go too far into that, if it's got that as well, you really will not have a problem getting very fluid gaming rates. So you've got a laptop chip that's good for gaming. You've got a laptop chip that's extremely snappy. Yeah, and you've got a laptop chip that's got AI for the future, and you've got a laptop chip that also what's it also gives you great battery life.
Well, and
So
X64 compatibility must
and
surely be a very big tick here.
yes, and absolutely, John. So Qualcomm chips, Snapdragon chips are around, and in fact, this one I believe, as it happens, is a bigger laptop, but this one's got a Qualcomm Snapdragon inside. This one's very snappy in general use, and 98% of the time it will work extremely well. But if you want to game on it, rubbish experience. I think that's massively simplifying things, but it's not great. It's because it's not designed for that, and the reason is, as John just pointed out, is because that's an ARM-based processor. And so you need to have a translation layer, or you need to have apps that are actually being compiled for ARM. And obviously Windows has been compiled for ARM, but not all the programs have. They need to go through this translation layer, so it does add a slight slowdown. However, because the chips that Qualcomm has produced are so good, you really don't see that. You will only see a problem when it comes to incompatible apps, and ones that really call on the display driver a lot, because that seems to be the area of weakness right now. So yeah, that's the other thing, John. You're quite right. It's got legacy support built in.
Can I ask a question, sir? Can I ask a question?
Of course.
Are you basically saying here, because I've not seen this new chipset yet, and you've
Yeah.
been obviously hands-on with it. So are you, I mean, we all acknowledge the advantage of the Snapdragon and the ARM platform on Windows on ARM. You know, a big leap forward there. And we all know exactly where Apple has gone with its M processors over the last 4 years. Compared to the previous Intel generations, which I will admit, of course, are pretty historic, even though I'm sat here in front of an Intel i9 MacBook Pro. And, of course, the fans are running just doing this. Are you saying that this new Intel platform is basically everything you actually ever really wanted, which is the x64 compatibility and the ARM-alike very long battery life?
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm saying it's very, very close to it for battery life, John. Very, very close. To the point of, in the laptops that I've actually tested, the Intel gives me better battery life than the Qualcomm does.
Can I actually be really controversial and say that's annoying? And the reason why it's annoying is because Intel and, of course, to an extent, AMD, two peas out the pod, were doing such a bad job here by comparison to where ARM was going, that we all loved what Microsoft was trying to do with the Windows on ARM and the effort they put into it, firstly with the 32-bit code translator and then the 64-bit code translator. And it looked like it was, you know, with the Snapdragon X arriving a few months ago, was that the point where the whole thing would actually get off the ground in a big way and we would start to see the end of the x64 Intel AMD hegemony that's been there for 35 years, if you like. Going right back to, if you want to go back to, say, Windows 3, if you want to go back that far or whatever. Are we saying that what Intel has pulled out the hat is actually enough to stall that rollout and deployment?
I'm saying yes, that I think it has. I think there is still, I think what it has done, but this is just my opinion, John. So take it with lots of caveats. But I think what has happened here is that it's pushed Qualcomm down to the lower end, so into more affordable laptops, especially with the X1 Elite chips. That it's brought out the 8-core ones of those. So I expect these the Intel Lunar Lake ones to be more expensive, certainly initially, than Qualcomm. So I expect to see thin and light designs. And actually what I do think is that Qualcomm has missed an opportunity, and the manufacturers have missed an opportunity to go down to slimmer dimensions than they currently have. Because most of the Copilot Plus PCs that I've seen developed have actually been pretty much just adjustments of existing chassis designs rather than doing anything dramatically new. So maybe what this will do is it will make Qualcomm go, and the laptop manufacturers go, okay, we need to have something distinctive for ARM. It can't be enough, but it's just got that better battery life or being a bit cheaper. It has to actually, there has to be some kind of physical difference as well, because x86 will still need more cooling, I would suggest, than Qualcomm. So yeah, it's not completely separated the two, but it's brought them. It's not completely brought the two of them together, but they're definitely closer together.
Price?
Sorry?
Price?
But it's a processor, so, and it's a laptop processor, so I don't have a price. But you will have what one thing that is important to point out is that the whole of the range, and they've only announced Core 5, Core 7, Core 9 for now. I'm not even sure if there will be a Core 3. They all have the same basic setup. So they've got 4 P cores and 4 E cores, no hyper-threading. So it's much simpler. And so the only difference you're getting between the lowest end one, which will hopefully be more affordable, let's say 800 quid laptops, that will be it's the same chip fundamentally as the Core 9, but it's clocked lower. So they've not done the same thing that they've done previous generations of core chips, where they've had many more P cores in the higher end chips. So they're all fundamentally the same, if you see what I mean. But do I have a price? No, I don't have an exact price. But what I do, I actually, so I genuinely think this is a really interesting piece of technology. I don't even, you can vote it cold if you like. That's fine. You can send me great big cold. Doesn't even work, Michael, dear, that particular screen image you've got there, because it says CDLT by the looks of things rather than cold. Anyway. You can send me abuse, and that is absolutely fine. But I tell you right now, this is hot, and probably Intel's most important release in terms of the client space, at least, in the past 15 years.
Can we have a vote?
Yes. Where should we go? Oh, is that the joke? Okay, all right. Yeah, so if you are listening to us live, then please do vote now. And let's go to Darian, hot or not?
Yeah, I mean, I'll skip to the end. Not, but it's a shame because this is... What's happened?
What?
Why is Tim throwing his headphones on the floor? Well, this is, as John says, everything we've wanted from an Intel processor for so long. But it's too late now. I feel like the momentum has gone. The moment has passed. I mean, I do still hop back and forth between...
They've still got 40% market share. The moment's passed. The moment is now.
How is that market share trending? And I noticed that you didn't include on the lineup for this week's podcast the fact that Qualcomm offered to buy Intel. That's the state of the market.
But I think that was last week, wasn't it? Where Qualcomm was talking about that. So.
Well, it's been rumbling on. Anyway, yeah, so I mean, I hop back and forth between Mac and Windows all the time. And I have to say, I think... Windows, I mean, it's not Intel's fault. Windows hasn't kept up in terms of solidity and stability and overall zing. I mean, I don't think Windows 11 is as bad as people say, but it's dropped off as my operating system of choice, and I no longer really care about.
I'm not asking you to vote on whether Windows 11 is hot. I'm saying to vote on the laptop processor.
Sure, but the processor exists so you can run Windows 11 on it, and maybe Linux. You can't run my operating system of choice at the moment on it. The whole x86 architecture, I'm afraid, it's a little bit too little, a little bit too late, and I think they've missed the boat. And although this is very well done for Intel, it's a big improvement in lots of ways. They've got chiplets, they've got TSMC using the 3nm process, all of that good stuff. If they had done this 5 years ago, we'd probably be having a very different conversation. But I'm sorry, people were saying I've been not exactly a cheerleader for Intel. I try to keep my impartiality, but I've been impressed and excited about some of the things they've done in the past couple of decades. I'm going to stop you
because I'm just looking at time. I fear you wouldn't actually stop. So to answer Running Dat's question, does the CPU have soldered RAM, or are you free to upgrade? It does have soldered RAM, but don't let that affect your votes.
I thought
it's
it was
all
on
part of the package.
Actually, yeah, it's not soldered. It's in the chip. It's another one of the clever parts.
I'm going to have to totally disagree with my learned friend Darian. I think anything that a company as big as Intel does here is significant. I agree with Darian that they damn well should have been in a position to have done this years ago. Whether or not that would have, I mean, I don't think for a moment that would have prevented Apple leaving. I mean, in terms of market share, that's kind of irrelevant anyway. But in terms of technology platform, because Apple was already on its own path there on ARM, it was just kind of an inevitable. And when they moved off Intel was a matter of when Apple were happy with the platform that they were generating rather than issues about the Intelness, although that was absolutely a driving factor. I think this is going to be very interesting to see what happens over the next year or so. It's going to be very interesting to see how Qualcomm steps up to the plate here. Because, you know, I've said before, where are the Qualcomm Snapdragon X based little desktop units, for example? You know, I don't know what's going on there, and I think that's a very bad thing. But I would ask exactly the same question. Are we going to see Intel Lunar Lake based little sort of NUC sized desktop units of low power consumption for businesses to roll out on the desktop? So I'm going to say it's hot. If it isn't enough to rescue Intel from the horrible mess it's found itself in, I don't know, because only time will tell on that front. But I've got to give it a hot.
Roche.
Well, I've got a lot to say on this, actually. No, I don't. No.
Thank you.
No, there's three takeaways I think I heard. I think you said it would make stuff thinner, lighter, and a longer battery. And that's all I need. Thinner, lighter, and a longer battery.
Don't we all?
Right? I'm sick of being a packing mule for my technology. Right?
Yeah.
There you go. Hot.
Okay, thank you very much. And unbelievably, despite the cabal trying to join forces against me, we do actually have a hot on the podcast chat as well. So thank you very much, everyone, for listening, and thank you to all my fellow podcasters, apart from Darian, who voted not, for being part of this week's podcast as well. Until next week, it's goodbye.
Bye.
Right. Let me just see if I can make this work. There was a request
Yeah.
on the chat. See if this works. There's antimony, arsenic, nickel, aluminum, selenium, and hydrogen and oxygen and nitrogen and rhenium, and nickel, neodymium, neptunium, germanium, and also it went too slow. Europium, zirconium, lutetium, vanadium, and lanthanum, and osmium, and astatine, and radium, and golden protactinium, and indium, and gallium, and iodine, and thorium, and thulium, and thallium.
Okay.
There's
all
yttrium,
right.
ytterbium, actinium, rubidium, and boron, gadolinium, niobium, iridium, and strontium, and silicon, and silver, and samarium, and bismuth, bromine, lithium, beryllium, and barium. Nearly there.
He has to do this live at the pub.
There's holmium and helium and hafnium and erbium and phosphorus and francium and fluorine and terbium and manganese and mercury, molybdenum and magnesium, dysprosium and scandium and cerium and cesium, lead, praseodymium and platinum, plutonium, palladium, promethium, potassium, polonium and tantalum, technetium, tellurium, tellurium, and cadmium and calcium and chromium and curium. There's sulfur californium and fermium, berkelium, and also mendelevium and steinium, nobelium, and argon, krypton, neon, radon, xenon, zinc, and rhodium, and chlorine, carbon, cobalt, copper, tungsten, tin, and sodium. These are the only ones of which the news has come to Harvard. And there may be many others, but they haven't been discovered.
Nice rhyme. Hooray! Well done.
That was
Excellent. Do you
We've
want
got
to
new
follow-
outro music without a doubt.
Hot, says Cole.
I just realised I forgot to disconnect YouTube, so that's going to be in the world now.
No, is that going to go into the final thing? I think that's a nice
It won't be
little
on
bonus
the
for people there.
MP3 that people can download, but if they skip to the end of the... but I stumbled a few times, and I tell you, it wasn't my fault. It's because the person who did the karaoke sing-along words did not skip ahead far enough at the
Can
right
I
time.
tell you
so-
though, Darian, honestly, no one would have noticed. Like nobody. No, because all right, well, so you know here, in Wales, they've got like a town with a really long name, and it's Llanfair Pulgwyngyl go Gerrig Quintrabel Llansilio go Gach. That's what it is. Thank you. But if it wasn't, who on the podcast would be able to go? Do you know what? That wasn't right there.
As resident stickler, I did my driving test in Clanfair Push, so I do know. I do actually know. I can't say it myself, but when I hear it, I can tell if someone's kind of
I
busting
was
in the
right
middle.
though, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
See?
Okay.
See on the
This has
10
been-
for
This
more.
has been one of the weirdest podcasts I've ever been involved in. In luckily a good way. So, Roche, are you going to do yours at the get together?
Yeah, definitely. In fact, actually, I'll change it to. It's usually Tom Tetley, but I'll change it to Tim Danton.
It's got a T in it. It's got another T in it, so it's fine.
Right. And on that note, I definitely need some lunch.
Yeah, as I'm saying, Barry summed it up very well. Okay, thanks
What's he
everyone.
Thanks.
He
bye.
said, so you've just done 70 minutes tech, and the two bits people want are Darren singing and Roche reading out Welsh place names. Yeah, that's what they want.
All right. And on that bombshell, bye
Later.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.